Welcome, everyone. We're doing the next part of the chapter by chapter series. Did a lot of recording today, but we're trying to stand strong, trying to get a lot done. So we're here in Genesis chapter 2. We're going to finish Genesis chapter 2, verses 4 to 25. This might be a bit of a short one, but it is what it is. So, this is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Notice here, this is the history, or you have here Toledoth generations document can be considered the translation of this, I believe. So this indicates that Moses here was using sources. This is the history of the heavens and the earth, the skies and the earth and the land, when they were created in the day that the Lord God, Yahweh Elohim, I believe it is in Hebrew. So number one here, day here is not referring to literally 24-hour period as it is in Genesis 1. Now it's a age. And we have here the first instance of the tetragrammaton Yahweh. Yahweh God. This is the first time you see it in the Old Testament. And he is the one who made the heavens and the earth. This is before any plant of the field was in the earth and before any herb of the field had been grown. This is before the third day, excuse me. For the Lord God, Yahweh God, had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So there was a mist on the earth that had the plants, made the plants, got the plants to be watered. So before anything grown, there was no, it was just land and sea. But then afterward, a mist would go up from the earth, and that's how we got the plants. Verse 7. And Yahweh God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So Yahweh, he forms man from the dust. Very interesting. We're made from dirt. He makes him from the dust and breathes life into him. God being the life giver. It says in Genesis and in John that in him is life. Let's go down a little bit. The Yahweh God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and he put the man whom he had formed. This is Adam right here. And he in this place Eden. We don't exactly know where it is. There's talk of that. We'll probably get into that more when we go into the verse by verse. But this place Eden is very intriguing. And God plants a garden there. And out of the ground, Yahweh God made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So God forms all these plants, right? Forms all these plants out of in that garden, presumably using this mist that waters the ground. Now, river went out of Eden to water the garden. This is also probably I guess this is what happened. The river is what watered the garden, not necessarily a mist, although it could be both, right? And from there it parted and became four river heads. The name of the first was Pishon. It is the one which skirts the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. So we have this first river, Pishon, which I believe is the Euphrates, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, it's not the Euphrates, excuse me. Euphrates is down here. Okay, so this one, Pishon, we have no idea. We don't know exactly what it is. It could have been like a little, small stream or whatever. And because of changes in geography, it's no longer there. We don't know exactly. It's the one which skirts the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Similar language to Genesis 1, where God, what the things that God creates is good, although I don't know if the same Hebrew word in this context. Bdellium and the onyx stone are there. So we have all other elements there, or not necessarily elements, like substances, rocks, jewels, whatever. Verse 13, the name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one which goes around the whole land of Cush. So again, this is another one where we're not exactly sure what was going on. It's possibly a small stream. We don't know. And it goes around the land of Cush. The name of the third river is Hiddekel, or Tigris. This is the Tigris River. It is the one which goes toward the east of Assyria. And Hebrew, it's Ashur. No, Ashur, excuse me. So, and then these are the rivers that we do know about in verse 14 here. The Tigris and then the Euphrates. The fourth river is the Euphrates. These two rivers we do know about. But these other two, we don't have much archaeology on it as far as I'm aware. Well, I'll have to look into that for the verse by verse because we're going to go more depth into that. But anyways, let's go down a little bit. Then Yahweh God took the man, or Adam, and so the word man in Hebrew is literally Adam, so or mankind. It's the same. So God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it, or to cultivate it. Keep the land, plant it, take care of it. You see here work being done even before the fall. Work in of itself is not wrong, but the toil which comes afterward, the struggle is what happens as a result of sin. But work in of itself is good and will probably be done in heaven. So he put him in the garden to tend and keep it. Adam was probably planting stuff, watering stuff maybe, but not with so much effort because God already provided natural means by which it was all being done. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat, for the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. Or dying, you shall die, it says literally. So, there's a bit of controversy in this verse. It says here, this the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's a tree there that God has there, and he says, he makes the command. Remember, God has the authority to speak things into creation, as we saw in Genesis 1. So now he has the authority to make commands to Adam. You shall not eat of this tree. This is my command. And he says, in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. We'll probably go more in depth into the supposed error in this verse. But here, there's a strict warning from God. Death. Whether that be spiritual death or whether the death was prolonged, we'll leave that up to the verse by verse. But you have a punishment here. The strict command, right? Strict command right here. And then the consequences if you break this command. Death. As it says, the wages of sin is death. Verse 18, and Yahweh God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground, Yahweh God, Sorry. Out of the ground, Yahweh God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam, or the man. It's the same Hebrew word, to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. It's interesting that the NKJV does it differently in both spots. Adam, the man. See, same thing. But anyway, so God formed beasts of the field and the birds of the air and brought them to Adam, and let Adam name each one. A task assigned to Adam here to name them. So this is the origin of the names of different creatures. Adam named them. So Adam gave the names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him. It's very interesting that God brought the cattle to Adam already, even though they weren't comparable to him. Why? I'm not exactly sure. We'll be going more in depth into that in the verse by verse. But just a few thoughts. It could be that, well, number one, he wanted to name, right? He wanted Adam to name the creatures. Another thing is, and this is an issue with suffering, time. God does things in his timing. For some reason, God wanted first to bring the animals to Adam. And then afterward, he would bring the woman, as we're about to see. So let's keep going. Verse 21. And Yahweh God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. So after bringing the animals, then God causes a deep sleep. So Adam just sleeping. That's it. He's sleeping. It's a deep sleep. Sometimes very hard for some people to get these days. But anyway. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. So he's taking from the ribs of Adam, taking from the ribs of Adam and closing up in the flesh in its place. God doing some miraculous works right now. What is he doing? What is he cooking up? Then the rib, double check. Then the rib which Yahweh God had taken from man, he made into woman, or literally built. And he brought her to the man. Notice a few things here. Yahweh uses the rib to make woman. So since she comes from men, she's also made in the image of God, as we see later in Genesis. Woman is also in the image of God. I believe that's Genesis 5, verse 2. And he brings her to the man. You can make some sort of an application today when it comes to romance. God himself brings the right woman to you. Now, it's not like he does everything, but God is involved in romantic relationships. Romantic relationships should be God-centered. Verse 23, and Adam said, this is now the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. She came from his rib, and she is of the same flesh of him. She shall be called woman. Ishasha. Interesting. Because she was taken out of man. Ish. Now it's using different Hebrew words than before. So that's a little interesting. We'll have to explore that in the future. But Adam names the woman because she's taken out of a man. And look at this, the Hebrew words Ish, Shaha, and then Ish. So combines words to make woman in Hebrew. Verse 24, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, or cling to his wife. That's very interesting. This is an institution of God, of marriage, God's way of marriage, his standard of marriage. A man leaves his father and mother to be joined to, or to cling literally to his wife, and the two, or they shall become one flesh. It depends on the version. I think some versions have two. So notice a few things here. It's one man and one woman. Polygamy is a sin. God institutes a monogamous marriage, one man, one woman. We also see the issue of divorce. It says cling, literally in the Hebrew. Divorce is condemned as sin. Divorce is sinful. So here we have God's institution of marriage, where there's one man, one woman, and till death do they part. Verse 25, and they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. They were basically like the animals. Animals don't wear, they don't wear clothes, right? Although the animals weren't made in the image of God. So not wearing clothes, they weren't like, they didn't realize it because they were in a state of goodness. They didn't have their sinful nature, and that they didn't have the capacity to, I'm trying to word this in a specific way. They didn't have their sinful nature, and they weren't going to be ashamed of their nakedness, but their sinful nature exposed that to them, and they became ashamed of it. But for now, they were not ashamed. We'll see what happens in Genesis chapter 3, but for now, I think I'll end it here. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.